Yo, what is up, everybody? So, I decided to go ahead and make this little video about one thing that just kind of keeps on coming up every time I go to the range. And the range that I go to quite often is an indoor range. Now, a lot of people have like their own various opinion when it comes to like indoor range versus back 40s or just outdoor ranges or whatever. It's neither here nor there. And I'm pretty sure you could probably see it every now and again at the outdoor ranges, but at the same time, the one thing that I see quite often that like a lot of people like overlook, for lack of better terms, it's one of those things where they don't really know why, and that's kind of why I titled the video like this. It's like, why do I suck at shooting? A lot of it really is because they got the guns, they got the ammo. The gun or the ammo doesn't really like play a huge factor, but the one thing that like a lot of people tend to kind of overlook or just kind of like cheap out on is the targets. Now, you may not think like, okay, like that's kind of like, an over exaggeration. He's like, no, like the one thing that like just from what I've seen and multiple times where I've seen people smack the walls literally with bullets or shoot the ceiling or just shoot the retractor, and then in turn like there's kind of an issue, and then they're trying to hold a zero. And me and my best friend, we've been to the range so many times, and we've seen like high-end guns, lower-end guns, and people smacking the wall, everything that I just said. Coco, sorry about that, babysitting a cat here, and being a little rowdy. It's all right. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing something. But all in all, like the one thing that a lot of people like, the one thing that I have no idea why a lot of people tend to think 9mm 223s, 556, maybe even 762s are like akin to basically this 50 BMG. And now they make this weird correlation to that, like the hole that's going to go into an actual paper target, that the 50 BMG, and like obviously the whole bullet is not going to go in there. It's just the tip that's going to go in there, and just to kind of like prove a point, there you go. That's basically the whole of a 50 BMG right there on a paper target. Obviously it's not flying directly at me, but that's what we're looking at here. Now, I don't have any snap caps. I do have live ammo of 223s, but like just to prove a point. Obviously, this particular part is going to go in through the paper, like of your live ammunition, and right around there. Try to get like a little bit of an idea. Yeah. You can kind of tell like it's not as significantly deeper. I'll try to make it right there. The point I try to make with this right here is because like this is just a simple like 9mm, and one thing that a lot of people just don't even bother to look at is the fact that and I did that for a reason. Like, you gotta imagine if you can see something like that, and this is up close and there's a negative backstop and there's a white sheet of paper. But a lot of people tend to forget that like the white sheet of paper, and especially the indoor range that I go to all the time, is the further out it gets, kind of the harder it is to see, and then their shots don't land up. And the reason why I did that is because this is what the hole is going to look like. It looks significantly huge, and obviously like the 9mm is not going to make what the 50 BMG size would. So in turn, the one thing that like a lot of people overlook is the targets. And then on top of that, I've kind of like a long story made short, I saw some people doing some, I think they're officers, pretty sure they're officers. They were basically qualifying. They were range qualifying, and I kind of saw that they were their shots are kind of like a little bit low and to the left. I saw some aggressive, aggressive stance due to the fact that the actual silhouette square target, which is kind of like, you just got to imagine like this is a target. They hang them from these corners right here, and then the whole target drops down. In theory, it's supposed to be like all right here, whereas like it doesn't. It actually drops a little bit lower, and then basically where the sternum and the vital organs are, they're basically like kind of like shorter and lower down right here. Now, the one thing that I got into doing, and I'm not even trying to push a product or anything like that, is actually something that I bought by pure accident because they were cheap at the time, and then in turn I just started using them. And basically, what I started using were these USPSA competition targets. You know, nothing to it. This is the one I use at home for dry practice most of the time. I guess kind of why it has an outline to it. But the one thing about these is when I clip them, like, and I have a lot of these. When I clip them, I put them right here. So in turn, it kind of like lines up where, like, you know, the vital organs are going to be. So in turn, that's what really helps me get better, because those targets that I was talking about, their shots are from what I remembered, their shots are landing here, opposed to, because the reason why, like how they hang, you got to imagine kind of like hanging it from like way up here. When in reality, when mine hang right here by the shoulders, my shots are actually in here, because they're at a eye level. They're at a certain eye level, and it really does help. And one of the things that, like, I mean, I've given these out quite a bit, because I see that, like, people are using bullseye targets, and yes, they're cheap. They're really cheap. Like the bullseye targets, the paper targets, the goofy targets. You know, some of them are like video game targets. It's whatever. And then I noticed that, like, a lot of them, when they shoot, they're trying to like make it as a game. And by all means, have fun. It's just one of those things where I've literally seen it many a times where people with ARs and pistols and what have you, they're trying to find out where the bullets are landing. Now, recently, like, you know, me and my best friend, we went to the range, and some couple asked us for help, and I can kind of tell, like, a little bit like into the story of like how like they were having trouble trying to find out where those bullets were landing. Mind you, they had a rental, they were familiar with the guns, the manual of arms. Not that big of a deal. But when I saw the bullseye target, and I saw like a good portion of them were like not grouped, and you know, it's one of those things, like, I mean, they don't have to be grouping perfectly. I mean, I'm not trying to say like every shot you take, try to make it to where it's like, you know, stacking nickels, or in this case, like trying to make like every shot the width of a silver dollar. I mean, obviously I can't do that, but like my shots are always gonna land basically where I would prefer they would land, just right here at the center of the target. I try not to hit hard for the A zone, and like, you know, it's like far along the way on the Charlie side, whether it be the left side or the right side, it's fairly okay, but all the you know, particular organs are right here. And kind of like you know, reeling it in here is the fact is, like, hey, it does help. I mean, I'm not saying go out and buy all of them, and like just make sure like you understand that, like, hey man, like how you're shooting, and then you're bringing your guns down, and then you're bringing your body down, just so you can accommodate the actual iron sights when you're trying to like land targets, like you know, land your actual shots on your targets. Like, I think a lot of people miss the fact that, like, yeah, with those particular squared ones, that the target is actually riding lower, and I think they miss that, and then they bring their iron sights, or even if they have a red dot, they're bringing it down just a tad bit, like, you know, and they want to aim like particularly for, like, you know, the chest that way, because it makes sense. I don't see a lot of people actually like aiming for the left or the right when they're actually shooting at I guess anatomy targets or bullseye targets when it involves a silhouette. They always try to hit like into the center, but I notice a lot of them are like, you know, low into the left or low into the right, and it's because of the fact that, like, yeah, because like those particular squared off targets, the paper ones, and me, I figured like I don't use them anymore. And quite honestly, I'm glad that I don't, because before I would actually cut them with my knife, and I'll cut them just so the damn target can rise up higher. But when they started using like the local big box that I shop at, and a few other places, and even at the range at the time, they started carrying those, and I bought all of them. So I was like, great, there's only a handful of them there, like $4.99. I mean, you know, whatever. They work great for me, and I've given them out to some people, and their shots are actually visible. Now they do have, like, you know, like a white and a brown inlaid, you know, I guess kind of like colored. Like I wouldn't say, like, I mean, there's a reason why it's like white and brown, but quite honestly, when you're actually kind of like shooting with the white side, and then there's a black backstop, you see kind of more or less how like it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where it's at. With the brown, with I guess the shade of the color, it helps you see a little bit better. And especially once like you get past the 7 yards and then you start going to 7, 15, or however far you want to go, the targets are easier to see just because of the eye relief that comes with like that shade of brown with the black backstop. And I'm just saying black backstop because that's that's basically what's there. And most of them are just kind of like shredded tires and like stuff like that, like stuff to kind of like absorb bullets really. So I don't really know exactly who needed to hear that, and it's one of those things where like maybe a lot of people just never really thought of it that way, but it's just one thing that I see, like like maybe go the extra mile and get them targets, because of the fact that like I feel like it'll help you. It'll actually kind of like allow you to actually bring your firearm actually straight into your eyesight, opposed to dropping it and then trying to cramp your body, because that's what I've seen. And mind you, I saw that with the police officers. I've seen it with just regular everyday people. And I mean, I don't. On a totally different side note, I remember one time, and me and my buddy saw this. We had one dude kind of like just pull his Beretta and just kind of like do his little weird walk away from the bench, away from the line, outside of his spot. Just kind of like roll up in there and just go bam, 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 bam. And I was just kind of, okay, I mean, I'm just gonna wait till you finish, basically, and then I'll continue, because I mean, come on, bro, you're breaking literally your whole line, your whole Bay Area, to just kind of like walk up and do the cool guy thing, basically. And the only reason I brought that up is because I saw him do the tactical turtle as he went all the way in there, opposed to just like bringing it straight forward and with eye relief. It was a good minute ago, but I always remember that. When stuff like that happens, I tend to remember stuff like that, just so I can try to remember if that individual's there. If they are, shoot, I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna request to go to the other side, and that's what I always try to do all the time. There's a wall there, and I always try to go on the furthest away from everybody, especially on the way in. I never try to be on the first lane. I always try to be furthest and away from everybody. Not because like I'm reckless or that. It's just that's more of a safety thing of me. It's kind of hard to, if like this is the first lane and I'm way over here, it's kind of hard for bullets to find their way all the way over here when there's a wall right there. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what I'm trying to say. So I don't know who needed to hear that, but I felt like I think I made a point. I mean, by all means, buy whatever you want. I'm just saying what's out there, and what works for me might work for you. So with all that being said, happy 4th of July. Stay safe, and what you got, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.